Hello, hello. How are you? I hope you're well. Today I want to share a couple of things from Akong Rinpoche about humility. In my life, 3 times I've been lined up to do a 3-year retreat, 4-year retreat. And each time, for reasons outside my control, I've been cancelled and assigned to do other things. I missed the first European retreat of Kala Rinpoche, and then I was due to do it, but then asked to give my place to some of his older disciples. Then the second one was the first Samiling retreat that started in 1984. And there Rinpoche was due to go to Tibet with Taisitupa for Taisitupa's first ever visit, and it took a long time to organize. And in the end it happened, but Rinpoche wanted me to look after Samiling while he was away. So I couldn't go into retreat, and by the time he got back from Tibet, the retreat was in its 2nd year, and it was too late to go in late. So anyway, nevertheless, I did all the training, prior training for that retreat, and helped teach others. And just before the retreat, Rinpoche gathered us, and he told us with tears in his eyes, he said, when you come out of this retreat, I want you to be the lowest of the low. I want you to be like a broom, the one that will clean up the dust and take the lowest of roles. And if any of you come out haughty, arrogant as a teacher and saying, I've done the retreat, I don't want to know you ever again. You must learn to be humble. And he said that with such force and with such sincerity. We all got the message at the beginning. And then another thing from his life that he reminded me of a long time after I'd forgotten it. The first time he did that was in the Dublin Centre, and we were alone having breakfast. And he looked up at me quite seriously, and he said, it's all your fault. And at first I sort of giggled. I thought, oh, is this a joke? And then he looked right deep in the eyes, and he said, it's your fault. And then I suddenly went cold and shuddered. I said, but what, Rinpoche, what? Then he said, I never wanted to teach. I was quite happy cleaning up around Samiling, sewing sheets, doing the housework. It's all your fault. And then he left it at that and carried on with his breakfast. I was quite shocked, and I tell you why he said that. But let me tell you, he did it a second time, 2 years later, in the Brussels Centre. Same thing. We were having a meal, just the 2 of us. And he said, I already told you, all this is your fault. I never wanted to be a teaching Lama. So what was he talking about? He's talking about 1975, when the 16th Karmapa came to Europe and came to Samiling. And until then, after Trungpa Rinpoche's departure from Samiling, he acted as the manager and looked after Samiling, but he refused to do any public teachings. He never gave empowerments, he never gave transmissions, he would never give a public talk. He very, very assiduously brought in Burmese teachers, Thai teachers, Zen teachers, and when there was a Tibetan Rinpoche passing in Europe, one of good repute, he would invite them, but he would never teach himself. He only taught one-on-one in private, and there he taught marvelously, and I was one of the privileged people to receive those teachings, going through the foundations and Mahamudra, meditation training and so on. In my delusion, I thought, and I wasn't the only one, a few other people in Samiling thought that he should be teaching publicly, and it was a shame that he wasn't shining his light on a public stage. And so I was asked by the others to go to the Karmapa and to complain that we had a Rinpoche in Samiling, and we wanted him to teach publicly, but he refused to. And on the strength of that, the Karmapa had spoken to Akong Rinpoche and told him that he must teach. Which he did, because he did everything so perfectly that the Karmapa told him to do. I've seen him to do that. The Karmapa once said, "Stay here," when we were in a bus, and then went off and must have forgotten. So Rinpoche stayed there, and he wouldn't leave until hours and hours later, when somebody went to tell the Karmapa, "He's still sitting there because you said stay in the bus." And then the Karmapa laughed and said, "Okay, tell him he can go now." He took it very seriously. And so he taught, and when there were no more of our Kaju Lamas around to give empowerments in Europe, he gave empowerments. But he was happy being humble. He didn't want to be a teacher. In my life, I've been a Dharma teacher, and one of my big heartbreaks is that I became arrogant. I took it for granted. I loved the respect of people, and so on, and so on. I don't say it went to my head, I tried to look after it. But you know, this is the point. When you are truly humble, you are not putting yourself down, you are giving yourself the opportunity to feel the sacredness of life, because this world is full of ego. All of us, we are such loud egos, needing attention, needing to make territory. And it's only in humility, in deep prayer, when you take refuge with all your heart and soul, that you allow the sacred nature of this universe that other people call God, we call it awakened nature, pure light, pure love, to flood into you, and you realize what a terrible barrier of darkness you've set up around you through me and I and desire and all the other things. Life is so beautiful, it is so meaningful. And when we disappear, then it appears. And when we reappear, it, and that's what the texts call it, it disappears. The beautiful, pure, loving, peaceful, perfect, kind light. I can only repeat what Akong Rinpoche told us. Out of your Dharma practice, become humble. Become humble, and the Buddhas will want to know you. Please.